So we have Iryna from last year's Speaker Mentorship Programme. So she would introduce herself and share her experience and how the Speaker Mentorship Programme impacted her proposal, and finally she on stage at EuroPython 2024. Hi, Iryna.
Hi, everyone. Well, so the mentorship experience was actually really great. It consisted of 3 stages. The first one was the preparation of the proposal. Valerie, our mentor, helped us with to craft the proposal, to restructure it a bit. The issue that I had was that my proposal was too technical and I didn't give enough or proper introduction to the topic. So I was mentioning like the methods that I would explain, techniques, etc., but I didn't provide enough information on why it is important. So that's something I adjusted. The second stage was basically the preparation of the talk. I created a template of the presentation and some meeting notes, and I received some feedback about that. And the last stage was the rehearsal of the presentation. The valuable feedback that I've got was regarding the text size, because you never know how big the room is, and it's a good idea to increase the size of the text on your slide so everyone can see it clearly. Also, one of the common pitfalls that I noticed is that very often speakers put the text or some QR codes, etc., on the bottom of the slide. And that's also not a good idea, because sometimes like people that are in back rows, they cannot see the lower part of the slide, and therefore they cannot see this text, or they cannot scan QR code properly. On the conference that I visited last week, there were rooms where the projector, or the image that is generated by a projector, was covered by a speaker, so it was so low that it was not possible to see the second part of the slide. So it's a good idea to put all relevant information or QR codes in the upper part of the slide, and not in the center, or not in the lower part. And also, it's a good idea to put a QR code of your presentation in the very beginning. So even if people cannot follow you or cannot see slides properly, they still have the opportunity to open the slides on your laptop, or on their laptops or phones, and see everything in details. So that's also a good idea to do so. And otherwise, I was actually very stressed before the presentation, because that was my first time of a public speaking, and therefore, like, I would not be that stressed anymore, because audience is very welcoming and everyone is very kind, even if you have some issues, or you forget something, or you have a bug, then audience will help you out. So don't be stressed about presenting. Yeah. Did I miss something, or?
No, that's good. You said it all and more. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's very nice to know your experience, and you're speaking this year too, so we are looking forward to it. Thank you very much, Iryna. So now we are going to have our panel, who I know are pumped and ready to share their experience with us. So we have 3 amazing people on our panel, and I'd like for them to start by introducing themselves. Then they would share with us one non-negotiable when giving a talk? Because they all have very good speaking experience. So it would be interesting to know what is that one, not two, just one, one non-negotiable when giving a talk. So we'll start with Abigail.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear
Hi.
me.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Abigail Dogbe. I'm Ghanaian, and I'm currently based in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I've been a part of the Python software community for some time now. And I'm always excited to bring people together to learn more about Python and definitely to also teach about the different ways that people can keep contributing to our amazing community. So excited to be here. And thank you now for inviting me here as well. So one thing that I would share that would be like a non-negotiable when you're giving a talk is this is something to really consider. I mean, before you even start to prepare your talk or even preparing your proposal, is learning or knowing about your audience, right? So take, for example, our community. Our community is very broad. There are people using Python for a whole lot of things. And even aside from that, there are people also within our community who are doing like the no code aspect of things when it comes to open source contributions or even contributing to our very own like community. And so learning about like what your target audience is or who like your audience like is really helpful for thinking about what kind of talk you should give. And I believe that that should also help you create a proposal, like a proposal that's definitely going or will have like a high chance of being accepted. So first and foremost, thinking about who your audience is, like is really, really helpful for you thinking about the kind of talk to give and even how to put together the resources for that particular talk. So it's what I would share. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hi, Rodrigo. Kindly introduce yourself. And for you, I'd like for you to share with us one unexpected experience you've had while giving a talk.
Hey everyone,
Hi.
thank you for the invitation. My name is Rodrigo. I first spoke at a PyCon conference, sorry, at a Python conference in 2022, I think in Dublin, EuroPython in Dublin, right? So 4 years ago now, or this is going to be my fourth EuroPython. And I went to that conference. I paid out of my own pocket. I used Python as a hobby programmer. It was the best money I ever spent in my life. And as for an unexpected experience, let's see, I prepared one non-negotiable, so maybe I misread the notes.
Okay, you can answer that too.
So this was unexpected. I'll go with maybe it was not on one of my talks, but one unexpected experience was when so for the Q&A, someone got up because they wanted to ask a question to someone else. So this was not I was watching this happen, but it was not on one of my talks. But someone got up because they wanted to ask a question, but instead of asking a question, they just criticized the speaker. And well, not very directly, but if you read between the lines, you can get it. And it's not nice if you're a speaker, right? But what you need to know is that if you're a speaker and someone's doing that to you, everyone else knows what's happening. So it's okay for you to shut that person down. You can say, well, if that's not a question, maybe we can skip to the next person, or you can do whatever you want. You can rest assured that everyone else knows that that person is being a jerk to you. It's very unlikely that this will happen because in dozens of conferences, I've seen it happen once. It's not 0%. It's a very small chance that it happens. But if it does happen, everyone knows that it's on them, all right? You're not the problem. So you can say, well, if you don't have a question, maybe you can sit down and we can talk about it later if you want, or you can just say, yeah, let's move on to the next actual question or whatever. All right. Yeah. So sadly, there are jerks sometimes, but we can all recognize them.
Great, great. Thank you very much. And to our final panelist, hi. Kindly introduce yourself and you can share non-negotiable or unexpected experience, any that you want.
Hello, everybody. Hello. I'm so happy to be here. So good to see you all. Thank you very much for the invite. So my name is Laís. I don't remember when I started speaking. I think it was at a meetup in Pi Amsterdam online during COVID, so 2019. It feels like yesterday, but it's now around 6 years ago. So yeah, I work as a developer. I'm a speaker. I used to work as a developer advocate, and I just got my first keynote for PyCon Greece. So I'm very happy about that. Yes. And as Christian likes to say, I'm a compulsive volunteer for the Python community, as most of us here, I think. Let's see. So I like to be over-prepared, so I prepared an answer for all the questions I could find. But the nicest one, I'm gonna go for the non-negotiable because the unusual experience is not that nice. So the non-negotiable for me is that you have a mission. I remember when I started putting talks together, I used to get super excited about learning these new things, and I'd be like, "Oh, this is a great thing for a talk," and I would start putting the talk together, and then by the middle of it, I'll be like, "But what am I trying to say?" Because there's several different ways that you can take that subject. So before now that I'm a little bit better at it, I start by thinking, what is the thing that I would like everybody to know? What is the message? What is the mission? So do I want everybody to learn how to, I don't know, format their code better? What tools am I going to show? How am I going to approach this? And then I go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, making sure that your message, that the mission is simple and it gets through your audience. So even if you have a conclusion with one line saying, if you take anything away from this talk, is this thing. I think for me, that's the most non-negotiable, in my opinion. But please do.
Thank you very much. That was really good, guys. Thank you very much. So thank you all for filling the form and sending in your questions and your topics. We are going to dive into that. And our panelists are psyched and ready. So the first section we'll look at is about audience engagement and storytelling. I think people are generally curious, okay, how do I give my talk in a way that people will be engaged from beginning to end? Because you know the whole thing people say about attention span and all. So the first question that I would ask Rodrigo, people would like to know, how can you own the stage, or how do you get the attention of your audience from beginning to end?
Well, you own the stage by trying to be charismatic, I guess. And it helps if you're not monotonous when you're speaking. So figure out a way to give some cadence to the words you say. Make sure you're not always in the same boring tone. And I think that you're going to be nervous, and that's okay. So telling you not to be nervous, that's not good advice. You're going to be nervous. I get nervous before every single one of my talks, but that's nothing because I've only been doing this for a couple of years. I heard a story of someone's father who spoke in public weekly for 50 years. They did it weekly for 50 years and they would still get nervous before their appearances. So it's not about not being nervous, it's about being comfortable with what you have to do and knowing that you know your stuff. So just go there, speak as no, sorry. So be confident that even though you're nervous, you know your stuff, and then to engage, just actually engage. Just because you're a speaker, it doesn't mean that. What does that mean? I mean, you have people in front of you, you can ask them questions. You can ask them to raise their hands, you can ask them to get up, you can ask them to shout at you. Shout, well, not as in complain, just speak to you. You can tell jokes. I mean, sometimes they will work, sometimes they won't. I love making bad jokes. You can do that. So you can actually work with your audience as if they are humans, because they are, and they're there right in front of you. So just do that. Pretend you're having a conversation with a friend and imagine how would a conversation with your friend look like. Would you ask them questions? Would you make small jokes? And then do that with the audience. You won't have I don't know, the captions from TikTok to keep people awake. So you have to do it yourself. Do it like this, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, like I'm really glad you mentioned like engaging. I think usually people see it as because you're giving a talk, you just like talk from beginning to end without engaging with the people. So that's really helpful. So you mentioned jokes, right? And I saw Abigail laugh. And there's a question about that, right? So would like to know like how many jokes are too many jokes? Should people involve jokes in their when they are giving a talk? Is humor good for engagement? What are your thoughts on that?
To be honest, it's good. Like, I mean, if you can definitely do it, because you might, I mean, pass a joke and no one might understand, and that might throw you off a bit. And you don't want that, like being on stage and all of that. To be honest, like, and other ways that you can approach this, there are a lot of memes out there. Doesn't have to be you cracking a joke. You can add some memes to your slides. You can add some emojis that kind of convey something that has got to do with a particular points that you're trying to raise, like in your talk. I don't know if I have done jokes in my talks, like because I don't know if it's something that I can really do, but I don't really try to concentrate more on that. It's good if you can do it, +1. If you want to try, definitely do try. But I think that in all, we should try to embrace the concept of storytelling, right? What are some of the real world like situations that you can relate to, like the talk that you're trying to give, or that particular thing that's like you're trying to talk about? You know, sometimes we want to think about cracking jokes, and so we try to think so hard about like what are some of the external jokes and all, but sometimes we've had issues where, or we've had times where in our bid to try to solve a problem, sometimes you have to go and sleep and then come back before you can come and continue that. Not sure if that's a good joke enough, but sometimes it's something that, or an act that we did ourselves, right? And it's always really good to try to talk about something that people can relate to. But I like the point that Rodrigo mentioned, that, you know, like not everybody like might be able to relate to the joke that you're talking about, or that you are trying to add as a part of like your talk, and that's perfectly okay. Aside from the fact that you think about storytelling, it's also important to think that you are there because people want to listen to you talk. People are interested in learning about what you have to share. It's not 100% about you and how you feel, and you know, because sometimes we can get into that, and that can unfortunately interfere with how we give our talks and all. But if you are able to focus on the fact that, you know, this talk is important. First of all, it's important, and it's the reason why your talk got, or your proposal got accepted. People want you to be here to be able to share. So focusing on the audience and thinking about what they're going to benefit from your talk also like really, really, really helps a lot. So yeah, jokes, very, very good. But the bigger picture, I try to think about storytelling like in a whole and in a craft. And it doesn't come from just speaking once, right? It's a skill that I think that people are able to like build as they keep giving talks. As you keep giving talks, you start finding a style that like really works for you. And like I said earlier, learning about the audience also works because you can't put together something that's meant for beginners and start to explain to them like they are already at the intermediate level. People are not going to really understand what you're trying to say. So yeah, there's a lot to share. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This is really helpful. What you mentioned about the storytelling links to the next question, which I'd ask Laís. So are there some techniques, right? So we know how some Python topics are complex, right? But then are there some techniques that can be woven into to make it like very compelling when like giving a talk? Maybe someone's giving a talk on something very complex and the person wants to add a compelling narrative in the context of EuroPython and a very like diverse technical audience. Are there any techniques to that or anything about that?
I was hoping this one was gonna go for Rodrigo, because one of the best people that I know that does this in a very good and specific way. It's true. It's true. The best person to talk about meta programming that I've seen. Let's see. So I usually choose, I cheat a little bit because I usually choose the topics that I kind of understand all right. So they're not that hard for me. So I don't need to actually go through this, breaking down the subject. But I think in general, I'm not sure what the best techniques are. In a general sense, but by watching, Christian's talks and Rodrigo's talks and the talks in general about very complicated subjects. And Christian, do not look like this because you gave one on CPython that was really good and really easy to understand as well. So I think that the best way is think as if you're a beginner, think as someone that doesn't know anything about the subject and escalate slowly, go step by step. Once you have something, show that something that you have to somebody that actually does not know what you're talking about and ask them if there are any gaps. So test your talk, test how you're talking about the subject. And let's see. Yeah, I think in a general sense, making sure that you break down the subject, that you tell a story, as to reiterate on Abigail's point. And if you're doing live coding or if you're explaining something very complex, making sure that you stop, that you let people absorb what you're saying, and then you go back to it. Maybe go back and go a little bit further. And don't try to cram too many things into a very short period of time, because if the subject is simple and you speak really fast, chances are nobody's gonna understand too much. But if it's a subject that's very complicated and you're trying to cram a lot of things in a small period of time, it's gonna be impossible. So go slow, bit by bit, and test prove your talk.
Great, thank you. This is really helpful. Rodrigo, is there anything you want to add up?
I think Laís went through the main points of what I try to do, which apparently works at least for Laís, which is good. I think that to make it slightly more concrete, sorry, to make it more concrete, telling a story when you're talking about technical stuff, it doesn't have to be a weird story. It can be something as simple and yet as effective as making sure you're giving examples that are grounded in reality. Even if it's a simple real life example, it's much better than having foo and bar and everything else. So if you pick real examples, that helps people understand what you're saying. And then when you do stuff bit by bit, which Laís also said, make sure you start from the bottom, and that at every point you have something, some concept and an idea and an example that people can grab onto, so that they build their knowledge bit by bit, and that they build it upwards in a way that makes sense. If you're trying to build something and you start in random places, then if the audience cannot put the pieces together, they don't get the point, and then you lose them. So make sure that they always know where you're headed.
Great. This is really helpful, and I must say I'm enjoying the chat section with everything that's happening there. Thank you all for keeping the chat section active. So the next part would go to is on presentation delivery and speaking skills, and the first question, so there's someone struggling with how to remember all their topics without writing a lot of notes. I think people are finding the challenge on how to prepare in terms of cramming it, or so that's the struggle someone is facing. Like, since you're smiling, you could take that question.
I was laughing at the comment section. For sure. I think I can do this.
Sure.
Well, the best way, for me at least, the best way to give a really good talk without having to go into your notes is to practice. As Rodrigo just said, to give a really good talk, first give 100 talks. If you practice, maybe you don't need to get to 100. I don't think I'm at 100. I think Rodrigo's closer to 100. I'm not. But I feel like when you practice, so ideally, and that's what I try to do with mine anyway, is I try to get it done early enough that I can practice in a regular basis. And the goal is not to have the entire speech memorized, but the goal is to know roughly what I'm going to say by simply looking at the slides. When you're at that point, you have a lot more leeway to have fun with the audience, to make a joke, to not take yourself so seriously, because you know that whatever happens, that whatever it is, if somebody gets up and start asking weird questions, or if you get interrupted, you're going to be able to come back and finish giving your talk, because you're developed this safety, this internal mental safety, and confidence on yourself that you're going to be able to deliver. Does that answer it?
Yes. Early preparation really helps. I'm sure all the amazing speakers here would testify. Yes. Abigail, I'll throw the next question to you. So, do you have any tips on preparing slides? Are there particular templates that you use to prepare your slides? Yes.
So to be honest, I've been doing this for quite some time now, and I attended PyCon US like in the last couple of weeks, and I felt like I knew nothing about creating slides. And I can bet that people are going to feel that way over and over and over again. So I kept asking people, like, how did you create the slides? Like, where did you get this from? How did you get this idea? I remember Cristián had these slides for PyLadies Con, and I was like, well, I think yours looks more beautiful than what I did, right? And one thing stood out to me, the tool people are using, Canva. I also do use Canva a lot, like when it comes to preparing my slides and preparing pretty much a lot of things. Like I rely so much on Canva, and Canva is free, right? Definitely there are some of the templates that might need you to have some kind of subscription, but to be honest, a lot of the free resources they give are very, very, very helpful. So first of all, there are so many templates. I'm sure there are other platforms that people can also use to create slides and all, but personally, Canva really stands out for me, and it works as well. So trying to pick something, a template from there, just so that you don't have to start from scratch, right? Trying to think about how you should like arrange your slides and all of that. And it's important that you're thinking about the font types that you're using as well. Too many font types might really not make your slides like visually appealing. Like I like to stick to like at most 3, but usually I stick to like 2 font types. One for like headers and then another one for like, you know, communicating like my points and all of that. But usually too, I like to put in some images here and there. And I try as much as I can to reduce the number of text per slide, because what you're doing is you're not there to like try to read out to people. You're there to present and delve deeper into like whatever topic or whatever thing that you really want to share about, which is actually something that's important to do. And I like Lais's point of practice, 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 because then if you have less talks, less text on your slides, and then you're able to like practice and have like your notes on the side. You know what you're going to talk about. And to be honest, sometimes you finish your presentation and you're like, oh, I think I should, this would have sounded better if I had said this, or I wish I had added this rather and not add that, to be honest. Like those things like can really like happen. Sometimes you might not really get it like 100% at the basics, right? Making sure that you find a platform, something that you can start with. If it helps with dealing with the colors and making sure that you're not all over the place when it comes to like all the colors and all of that, you can check the theme of the conference, right? What are the colors that the conference is using? Sometimes conferences might share a template of slides that they can recommend or encourage people to use. Sometimes that doesn't also exist. But to think about, if you're thinking about like colors and all of that when it comes to how you want your slides to be visually appealing, it's also a good way to think about what's the theme of the conference. That can also pretty much help you. And yeah, just making sure that when you present, people can actually see what you have on your slides. That's also very, very, very important. You can put in so much work, you get on stage and people can hardly see the text or like what you're trying to present, because maybe the font size is small, or maybe you've used a particular color that is like, you know, really not making the whole thing show like very well. So paying attention to like all of these things help. And I can give you one trick. People have done this several times. People have given talks several times, and these talks are recorded and made publicly available. You can spend some time watching any of the videos to find out how people are putting their slides together. And perhaps that can give you an idea of where to start from and how yours could also look like.
Thank you very much. This
Yeah.
is really helpful. Hi, Laís, you can go ahead.
I think, yeah, Abigail is spot on. That was so good. And I learned so much from the comment section as well.
Yeah, I know there's so many resources.
Precious is on fire. But there was one thing I would like to add to Abigail's point, and it's also reiterating, is maybe, yes, the colorblind friendly. So maybe one good idea as well is after you finish, or maybe when you choose how the skeleton, the template of your presentation is going to look like, save it on PDF, or maybe in PPT also works. Go to an accessibility checker online and see what comes out from your slides, because sometimes you don't realize how there's very low contrast between colors. And ideally would like everybody to be able to see what you put so much work onto it. And in color blindness, for example, it's not an alternative. It's people want to see, but they cannot see what's there if it's not friendly. So yeah, just make sure that your slides, all the material that you show is also accessible. That's a big one.
Yes, good one. Thank you, guys. Hi, Rodrigo. So, the next question I would ask to you is, so someone is putting in pauses to give emphasis as they are preparing for their talk, but then is delaying their talking as they prepare. So how can someone pace the talk?
Sorry, I was looking. So the question is, how can someone
Pace the talk without
pace the talk?
delaying? Yes.
Okay, right. Well, I think I'm just gonna say what we've said already. You have to practice. If you practice, you should also time your talk. And one thing I like to do is practice myself sitting at a computer and record while I'm practicing, because then I can watch it again. So you're going to practice, you're going to record yourself doing it. It doesn't have to, if you don't want, don't record your face, but record your voice and the slides as you go through them. And then when you rewatch it, you can check your speed. So what you want to do is you want to make sure you're not going too fast, because you understand what you're saying, because you've written your talk and you've practiced 10 times already, but the audience is seeing it for the first time. So make sure you're going slow enough, make sure you're not cramming too much into your talk, and then take into account. No, I guess that's it. Sometime, depending on people. Sorry, this is a very important tangent, and the earlier we say it, the better. Everything I'm going to be saying, what Laís says, what Abigail says, what everyone jots down in the comments, we're all sharing our own personal experiences. So we're sharing what works for us. There are some things that tend to work for most. There are things that tend to be awful for most. But everyone has their own way of doing things. What works for me maybe doesn't work for you. All right. So I can only share what works for myself or what I've seen work for others. And what sometimes happens to me is that when I'm very, very nervous, which is typically a synonym with I didn't prepare enough, I speak faster because I lose control of my own pace. And when that happens, I end my talk too soon. Now, thankfully, that doesn't happen often because I prepare well enough. So if you really rehearse a couple of times, then that should give you a good idea that you have like the right amount of content for the right time slot. And when you're giving the talk, just be conscious of the fact that when you're nervous, you tend to speak faster. So make a conscious effort to speak calmly, because what will feel like you being very slow, it's actually the right pace. Make pauses. It's okay to pause and stare at your audience for a second. It's going to feel like an eternity for you. But if it's just 1 or 2 seconds, it's going to be fine. And it helps you take a deep breath every couple of sentences. So these, I think, are the most useful things I can say. And I do these and they work for me.
I'll just ask you a follow-up question because you mentioned getting nervous.
Right.
So how do you deal with nerves? Like when you get nervous, how like when you're standing there and in that moment you're nervous, how do you deal with it?
All right. So I'll say it yet again. You cannot avoid being nervous. Well, maybe you can. I cannot. I cannot avoid being nervous. I just embrace the nerves and I rehearse beforehand so that as soon as I start talking, my nerves go away.
Okay.
So that's me. So I just know that I'll get super nervous before the talk, but because I practiced and because I know what I'm going to say, as soon as I start, the nerves go away, kind of. So this is all you can do. Don't try to not be nervous, accept the fact that you're going to be, and prepare yourself.
Yeah, preparation. I think there's this
Yeah.
quote, victory loves preparation. So preparation really is key. Yeah, so Thank you so far. Thank you all so far. This is really helpful. So the next thing we are going to look at is okay, we've highlighted on visuals and materials a bit in the presentation, but someone wants to know, I don't know if this can be explained, but someone wants to know, how do you design a repo for a conference? Yeah, I think maybe the person is asking, okay, maybe to put the resources there. For me, I know GitHub. I don't know if there's any other alternative to that.
Maybe I missed it. Did you direct the question at anyone?
Rodrigo, you can take it. How to design a repo for a conference? Cause your own.
I also kind of don't get the question, but you just want to share your stuff. I mean, just create a GitHub or a GitLab or
Yeah.
whatever repository and put your slides there. Maybe add information on how to be, if people want to get in touch, like your email or something. But I don't get the design part of the question.
Okay, thank you. The next would move to is technical content delivery and structure. And one of the most popular ones, live demos, short videos, snippets. Is it advisable? If you can avoid it and you have to do it, what are some of the things you should take note of? Is anyone who wants to take it? I don't want to mention anyone's name. Rodrigo, show.
I want to say stuff about it, but I'll gladly share the stage. Lots of people, because again, it's subjective advice. Many people will tell you not to do live demos, especially if you're inexperienced. I love doing live demos because I think it's a high risk, high reward kind of thing. If it goes well, it's amazing. Now, if it goes poorly, it depends on how well you can recover from it. You can have, all right, so that's that. It's high risk, high reward. That's more or less objective. If you're doing, this is a tech conference, it's a Python conference, but the internet sometimes doesn't work. Sometimes you can't even get audio from your computer, so try to rely on as little external factors as possible, and always have a backup. If you're doing live coding, make sure you have the snippets of code already written, because you will make mistakes. When I'm live coding, I love doing it. I do it fairly often, and I always mess up. There's always bugs in my code. So you either find it in 5 seconds, or you need to copy the correct code from elsewhere. Otherwise, your nerves just start piling up and everything goes south very quickly. If you're showing a live demo of something else, make sure you have a recording of the demo. Just make sure you have backup plans if you're doing live demos. If you're too afraid, don't do it in your first talk. I mean, it's fine. Do it for your second talk.
Abigail, Laís, is there anything you want to add up to this?
I would say have fun. It's something that it's really different when you see, it's very, very different when a speaker is very nervous and really want that their demo is the most perfect thing in the world. And most likely the demo gods will not be happy and the demo is not going to work. So when you have fun, I've been to Rodrigo's talk as well and a few other people where, well, things were simply not working. And he was just like, well, give me 1 minute. I need to drink water. I need a break on this. And then I'm going to check my notes. You people are going to think about how we can fix this together. And then we're going to come back and fix it. So, there's this moment in the middle as you can just go away. You can check your notes. You can read. Give yourself time to actually read what's on the screen and try and debug it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. What it matters is at the end of the day, you tried and you had fun and you're there. As for actual live demos, sometimes the computer doesn't want to work, sometimes the video doesn't have sound. It's not the end of the world. It's fine. If nothing works, it's fine at the end of the day. Just make sure that you have, the message at the end of the day that you want to get through. And let's see, about the documentation for the demo, maybe that's a thing that you can do if you're gonna do a live demo and you have code and you want people to be able to execute it or understand. You can have a repo ready beforehand, where if people want to see what you're actually trying to do and it's not working during the talk, you can tell them, go to this URL, the code there works. You can try afterwards. So yeah, just be prepared, but if it doesn't work, don't be too afraid, just have fun. It's fine.
Great, thank you.
And
This is
yeah,
have
can I
fun.
add
Yeah,
something?
Abigail, can go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the last thing I'd like to add is, especially if it's like a workshop, right? Having a +1 there can help with helping with people, like when they have questions and all. But if it's like a normal talk and you're trying to like move forward, but then you are also able to ask people to reach out to you after the talk if they have like any questions, like or further questions, right? So you can definitely talk about the fact that you're available to answer other questions or do a demo if like, I mean, people want to like have some more like like after you're giving your talk. That way you're able to go through what you prepared yourself for. And then because like I really love what like Rodrigo said, like as for being nervous, it's going to be there. And sometimes, yeah, like I shared in the chat that for me, I'm nervous from the beginning to the end. So it doesn't go away. So like if you're like me, you can opt to do that even for other talks, like normal talks. It doesn't only have to be about giving like a technical one or like a demo and all. Like even for other talks, you can request to take questions like after your talk, let's say in the hallway, or maybe you're organizing an open space where you feel like more calm, like and relaxed some more to be able to like really answer people's questions, or especially for other people who are also curious about how a particular feature like works. You can also keep that in mind and implement that. But apart from that, know that people want to learn from you. People are interested in listening to what you have to share. And that alone should be a huge encouragement for you to keep going and keep focusing on what you're presenting on.
People want to learn from you. That's really great. So so my next question, we've already mentioned it, but I see that it's been asked like a few number of times. So I'd like us to highlight it again, because I guess it's a huge concern, because I'm seeing like quite a number of it. So I think people are really curious about how to present technical ideas in a way that it's engaging, it's accessible, people remain curious, how not to lose people when you are presenting something very technical. And I think I'd like us to link this to the different levels of people that would be in the session, like beginner, intermediate, advanced. How do we like really keep these two in check, how to present the technical things without losing everyone, and still taking into consideration the different levels of people that are in the audience. Rodrigo, do you want to start?
Sure thing. I think that first, beginner, intermediate, and advanced, these are three words that really don't mean a lot, because someone who has a lot of experience, if they're not confident, they'll say they're a beginner and then they know more than you do. Or someone says they're advanced just because they have a huge ego, but then they don't know anything. So one thing you can do is in your abstracts, make sure you're clear when defining what you expect your audience to already know, because it's fair to assume your audience already knows some things. So be clear, say, I expect the audience to be comfortable with X, Y, Z. And then you, in your talk, don't assume anything else other than that. So building on what you said, the audience must know, explain stuff. And in explaining, this is more an art than a science. And pedagogy is a whole like field of study. What I try to do is figure out analogies that make sense, come up with real world examples, even if they're small. And when you're showing code or when you're talking about technical concepts, make sure that what's on the screen, make sure that everything that is on the screen is necessary for your point. Extra code doesn't matter. Even if your code isn't 100% correct because you omitted a couple of lines from the beginning, like if those lines don't sustain the point you're making now, remove them, because people will look at those lines of code. People will spend time reading your code, and it's time they're not spending listening to you. So remove stuff that's not necessary. Make sure you boil everything down to its absolute core. And then try different analogies, figure out how did I learn this in the first place, and then try to reproduce that when you're explaining things. I hope this helps.
Yes, 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 it does. It really does. Abigail, Laís, do you have anything to add up?
Abigail, you should go. I think I'm very well summarized by Rodrigo. I think those are great.
Great. Okay, so the next thing we'll talk about, we'll be wrapping up soon, is workshops and tutorials. So someone wants to know, how do you animate a workshop? Or how do you structure a workshop?
To animate, I would say you need to get your best outfit. We've seen in PyCon US this year, we saw a couple of folks wearing specific colors and cowboy hats. And there was, I'm not saying that that's all your workshop should have, but it definitely helps when, you know, you have animated head props and things are like banging, and you're talking about, you know, how classes are supposed to be done. It's fun. I also quite like what Christian was writing about how to design a repo for talk. I think for the workshop is kind of similar. So having your code already there, maybe manage the when you separate your workshop into the phases, you could separate them into branches and write clear documentation. Either on your README or have steps or describe exactly what you're going to do and how much do you expect people to know, how much code you're expecting people to write, and what you should have installed them beforehand, and what's going to be the outcome of that workshop. Because I've been to somewhere there was no way we're going to be able to do everything that we're being promised we're going to be able to do in that specific space of time. And I ended up leaving with a sense that I was panicking because I wanted to get, you know, the output actually done, but there was no way that could be done. Any further thoughts on this? Abigail, maybe?
Yeah, just pretty much make sure that your audience like know the expectation, like what you're going to get from that, because sometimes it's easier to keep, I don't know for other people, but for me, most of the times be rest assured that I keep getting new ideas when I'm implementing something or when I'm teaching something, right? And sometimes that can be a lot for you to deal with. So making sure that you have something defined to say, okay, this is what to expect. And these are the tools that we are going to use. And this is, or I expect that you have some kind of knowledge in these particular fields or using this particular like tool and all. So that like really helps, especially for the kind of audiences that you're going to attract to that particular workshop. And I think what I know that SpikeOn US also does is to have facilitators, right? So people who can help or volunteer to be in the room with you to also help you navigate the stress of, trying to be there for everybody, right? And making sure that they get the best out of it. So if the conference haven't mentioned anything like that, you can go ahead and ask, right? Is it possible to get a volunteer for your session who might be interested in helping you deliver that particular workshop? But I also love the concept of exercises, like what Rodrigo mentioned in the comment section, right? Like mini challenges, right? And having people do something exciting. You can think about even having people work in pairs, right? And have them work through some mini challenges and all. That way people can get the best out of it, and they can also share ideas and then work together on that particular workshop that you're given.
Thank you. This is helpful. Rodrigo, your hand is up. Kindly go ahead.
Thank you. What I didn't tell you is that I was about to rant. A tutorial is not a long talk, folks. If your audience is not writing code, it's not a tutorial, it's a lecture. And common, arguments that I've heard against this is, my tutorial covers very advanced material that the audience won't be able to keep up with. Well, that's your fault. Your tutorial should cover material your audience is able to keep up with. No one said it's easy to give a good tutorial. If it's a lot of information and you don't have time for exercises, wrong. Cut down on the information, make time for exercises. If the audience is not writing code, it's not a tutorial, it's a lecture. Rant over, thank you for your attention. I feel very strongly about this. I feel very strongly.
Clearly, I can see. Okay, would you like to I'd like to give you a follow-up question on that. So are there any other best practices for conducting a tutorial during a conference?
Give them exercises.
Anyone?
Sorry. I don't think the question wasn't even for me, right? I just wanted to say this.
No, it's for you. It's a follow-up for you because
Okay,
yeah,
so then
yeah.
they Laís and Abigail already said everything. If you give them exercises and you get the TAs to help, because Abigail's tip was spot on. Like, get TAs to help you, because some of these rooms are huge and you can't be everywhere. And if you're doing your job right, then your attendees are spending a fair amount of time working on exercises. So you want help from others. That's excellent. And then I think it was Laís that said in the beginning, just structure everything. So everything was already said, I think.
Okay, great,
think-
great. Thank you. Sure, you can go ahead.
I think what I can also add is it's okay to pause, to take breaks, because what's happening is that people are learning, and sometimes you can dive so deeper into what you're doing that it's okay to pause and take a break. So for example, if it's an hour-long workshop, it's okay to structure it such that you're doing something every 20 minutes where you're pausing for a minute or two, right? And what that also does is that it gives room for other people to also catch up with where you are, and making sure that everybody in the room, you're on the same page and no one is left behind, and things like that. And also trying to ensure that you can have some time with other people who might feel left behind and might want to chat later. That could also be something that you as a speaker could also think about when it comes to making sure that everybody in the room receives the best out of what you're doing. So it's okay to pause and take breaks during the session.
Okay, there's a question on the tutorial regarding tutorials from Christian. Should the tutorial repository or source of the material include the answer to the exercises? Anyone wants to take it?
I think yes. Maybe in another repository that you only give the solutions in, you know, specific time. I like to be able to see a implementation if I'm stuck, like very, very stuck. I understand that the goal is to, you know, burn your brain until you actually get the answer. I like to be able to see how people would think about the problem. Also, like, not saying that it works, but you know, you can always throw the thing to an LLM and say, write the code. So I don't know, but please do disagree with me.
Rodrigo, Abigail, any thoughts?
So I guess that's it. Someone who wrote it. No, Laís said. I think it's good to have the answers, just don't make sure that they're not exactly in the same place, because from a pedagogical point of view, you want people to struggle, not necessarily to suffer, but yeah. But I think they should be there because the tutorial is over, and if you want people to keep working, then the key, just make sure showing the key to the exercises is helpful for people who want to make sure that they got the information they needed and that they actually learned.
Great, thank you. So if you have any questions, you can start putting it in the chat. We are moving to our last section, and after that, you could also raise your hand to ask a question. So this last section is on language and cultural considerations. So someone wants to know, I mean, English is spoken everywhere, but I mean, sometimes conferences are organized in European countries, right? I mean, EuroPython is organized in Europe. How can a speaker manage the language diversity of the audience? Is the language diversity actually a problem? For me, I've been to conferences and I don't see it as a problem though, but maybe just an assurance or clarification for a first-time speaker who might be wondering. Anyone who's ready can take it. Abigail, do you want to take it?
Let's see. So first of all, the kind of conference can help you learn about that, because if we are taking EuroPython into consideration, right, this is an international conference. You're going to be meeting, interacting with people from not only Europe, right, different parts of the world. So most definitely, that should also even give you some kind of idea that, yeah, like language should definitely be something that you should consider or think about. And a way that you can navigate that is definitely to also try to find out some more from the organizers. I know organizers are always willing to answer questions like that anyone has. If you want to learn more about what the diversity looks like, I know that I was trying to see if I can get specific examples, but the way that you might say something in your culture or in your language might mean something different to someone else who is not from there or not familiar with your culture or like what you're trying to put across. So sometimes it's important like that you reflect on this and think about how you can do better and then deliver well, like as a speaker in such a space. Because to be honest, like it's a different setting. If you're having a local Python event, you know, okay, like this is for, I mean, all of us here in Berlin, this is how we behave here in Berlin, right? You know, and so, or these are some of like the way that we think about things like here in Berlin. So sometimes that might be a bit easier to navigate. But if you think about how big the conference is, especially looking at the fact that this is EuroPython, most definitely like that should be something that you should definitely think about and try to come up with how you can be kind, you know, and even be kind and curious enough to learn about, you know, how it works for other people and their cultures. So yeah, I think it's important.
Great, thank you very much. Rodrigo, Laís, is there anything you want to add to that?
I love Abigail's point. 100%, I agree. I think that speak slowly and don't assume that everybody has English as a first language, which is, you know, building on to what Abigail is saying. But I remember not that long ago, Rodrigo and I were sitting watching a keynote at PyCon US, and the talk was incredible. It was amazing, really well structured, really good. But the person was speaking really fast. And Rodrigo and I, English is not our first language, and I consider myself fluent, and I believe Rodrigo is also fluent in English. But I could not understand what the person was saying because there was a mix of Shakespearean English words and like really specific expressions being spoken really fast and in a very intricate way with the sentences. Like, I have no idea what's happening. And then we looked at each other like, yeah, you know, these are cool, but you know. And it was a keynote person. And we know the talk was really good, but we couldn't truly enjoy it because it was too fast. So I don't think we stress this enough when we think about it, about giving talks. Go slow. Go slow, take your time. And if you think it's taking too long to get your point across, well, then it's probably because your talk is too long. To quote Rodrigo's again, just chop everything down to the bare minimum, to the core, to the essential parts of what you want to say with your mission, the message that you want to convey, and slowly explain that. I'm guaranteed there's going to be much easier to understand at the end of the day for fluent speakers, native speakers, non-native speakers, and afterwards everything gets uploaded to YouTube, so people can just, you know, if you speak too slow, 2x, and you solve the problem for the people who think you're too slow. So
Great, thank you very much. Rodrigo, do you want to add up or we good?
I think we're good.
Okay, great, great. So if you have any question, we have like a few minutes. Okay, Abigail?
Sorry, I wanted to
Alright.
add that usually checking the conference's code of conduct is also a great place to learn more about such, you know, topics, or I mean the way that you should think about handling like this particular thing, because people are coming from different parts of the world, and if there should be any issue, people are going to refer you to the code of conduct. We said it, right? Like, and you agreed or you accepted before coming to the conference. So it's very good that you are well abreast with what the code of conduct also looks like for that particular conference, because that might differ from conference to conference. Yeah.
Great, the code of conduct. Let's not forget that. Thank you very much, Abigail. So if you have any question, you could raise your hand or put it in the chat. It's been amazing so far. And I'd like to advise you can put your LinkedIn in the chat to connect with other people. We're a beautiful community. So don't hesitate to put your LinkedIn in the chat to connect with people. So any question? Let me see. Okay. Okay, sure. Mark, you can go ahead. You can unmute and ask the question.
Okay. Hi. Thanks for the time. I wanted to ask two questions. What about the use of GIFs? I like memes. Some of them are GIFs, but they might not be the best format for some people. And the other question is self-promotion. Say, for example, I'm looking for a job. Is it okay to put it in the end, at first, in the end of the talk? It's not okay to put it in the slide on the slides. That's it.
are you
Yes.
To a particular person, or are you asking to everybody? Sorry, Marco.
Yeah, to everyone. Yeah, to everyone.
Okay, I'm gonna take the part of self-promotion. I would say do it at the beginning, do it in the middle, do it at the end. If you're looking for a job, it's something, important. Put your contact details. If you think you should put your GitHub handle in every single page of your slides, do that. And then people are gonna judge you if you're good at whatever you want to be hired for throughout your talk. Yeah, anybody else wants to take the other side, the other part of the question? Okay, can you repeat the other part of the question? Sorry.
Sorry. The other part, or the other question was about the use of GIFs. So GIFs, like some people might, I've heard maybe some tip or someone saying that as the tip of using black text on white background. I think that's the good. But we use sometimes we use dark mode. We live in dark mode, and that's not optimal for projectors. And I think I've heard the same with GIFs. Some people may not like it or have difficulties to seeing GIFs, or they might be distracting. So if there is any opinion on that.
I use memes. I mean, I cannot give, a general opinion on this one. For me, like a personal opinion, I use memes when I think they are suitable. I also use GIFs sometimes when I think the movement is actually doing something for the talk. In my personal opinion, the thing is, do not overuse it. Make sure that whatever you're doing, if it's fun, you like it, but also it's not leaning towards something too much. So if every 3 slides out of 5 is a GIF or a meme, you're probably running out of content. So if it's like, one off, I don't see why not.
Okay, great. Christian, give a tip about that. Was it? Yeah,
It was
Christian
mostly
said,
about
yeah.
it was mostly about that. For example, I had a discussion with someone during PyCon Italy that someone was explaining something very nicely, but for explaining it, put one slide with a GIF, and this GIF was an animation that you can notoriously see when the animation went restarting, right? So the person stayed there for around a minute, so you could see the same thing repeating. And it was very like bothering, like this not really recommendable. So if you show a GIF for the joke, like a couple of seconds, and then change the slide and there is more content, good. But if you want to put something there repeating on the loop, a lot of people might get triggered.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Christian. We could take like one last question. Anyone?
There is something that Christian said on the comments that I don't know if everybody got it, that I think they're very good points on the language. So if somebody else has a question, I'm more than happy to shut up. But if not, maybe you could go through them. Dun, dun, dun.
The one that about the language thing.
Yeah.
So for example,
The
also
jargons and things, yeah.
culturally speaking, I mean, it takes you no effort instead of changing your way of saying guys or girls, like just people, like hey people, hello folks. It's simple. Then you don't get into anyone's thing. Depending of the culture, also might be very funny to make joke of your current politicians or government or whatever. But for other people, can be super triggering because of the situation of their country. So usually in international conferences, try to avoid religion and politics and sports. Well, if you are brave enough, you can always throw sport jokes if you believe that people will joke and not get offended, as long as you don't treat the other team so badly, right? The popular saying thing is that you explain things in languages, and I'm pretty sure that most of you have their own sayings that you might use in order to explain something else. If you try to translate that in English, it might be weird. But Raquel was mentioning that if you try to put that thing on the spot and then explain what does it mean, it might serve a good purpose as well. Be kind with people in general. I have been in talks when the speaker said, like, I will ask you some questions, so be prepared. So I will be pointing at you and give you the microphone so you can reply. It's like, come on, I mean, I'm not in the high school again, right? So be kind with people, make them participate, don't put them on the spot, and treat everyone the way that you believe that they should be treating you. And the last point that I was giving you there is that sometimes I, for example, joke with the people in the audience, in the sense of, like, if I have people that I know them, I made a mistake that I didn't. Well, maybe not a mistake, but people knew already. But for example, I remember, like, my last talk in PyCon Italy, Rodrigo. Maybe you remember that I was saying, "What does this code mean?" You cannot answer, and I pointed to Rodrigo, but Rodrigo was laughing, so it was okay. People might not know and might say, why this person don't like this other person, right? And if we sprinkle this whole thing into religious clothes, color of our skins, this can be seen as very bad if I'm pointing to someone to say, you cannot reply this. And I ask you this because there was I tell you this because there was a conference back then where keynote, I will not say the conference, the keynote was, the title of the keynote was proving that another keynote was completely wrong, right?
Oh.
They were very good friends. They were super
Mm.
close friends. Lots of people didn't know they were good friends. So imagine if tomorrow I said, I have a call, a meeting that says, why all the questions that Na did in the first time speaker workshop were wrong. Maybe we have an internal joke running. Na will be laughing the whole time, but for someone else, it will be, why this person hates Na, right?
Mm.
So be careful with how you interact with the different people, or maybe add a comment like, Rodrigo, you cannot answer this thing because Rodrigo knows already the answer. You know, it's different to say, do not reply to this thing. But just general things that came to my mind.
Great, thank you very much. Can you go ahead?
Hi, I'm Joaquin. I was going to ask actually two questions. The first one is related to this level of the beginner, advanced, or medium, whatever. One thing I'm kind of worried about is if the talk is too simple, because I try to talk about a topic that's not really into programming. So the programming part is really simple, and I'm kind of worried if it's going to be too boring or too simple for the audience, which I already stated that in the proposal, but still kind of worries me about. So I don't know what's your view on this. And the second one is mainly because what you mentioned about being respectful with the color blindness. And I don't know if the default code with I think it's Jupyter in Visual Studio Code. I don't know if it's already colorblind or not. And I would like to know that if you know, so I can avoid displaying something that's not not inclusive, let's say. That's it.
Rodrigo, your hand is up. I guess you want to answer.
Yeah, I'll go for the first question. Well, simple and boring are two different things.
Yeah.
So your talk can be simple and not be boring. Your talk can be engaging and the topic might be simple. And then simple is again subjective. People might know less than you, and it's a Python conference, sure, but you don't want all talks to be very advanced from a technical point of view because there's beginners always. And a big portion of the conference attendees, or the conference, is composed of a big percentage of beginners or self-classified beginners. And also, people tend to really enjoy learning about Python being used in different places. And I don't know exactly what your talk is. And respectfully, it's also not very relevant for the point, because if it's something that's interesting, if it's in your field, if you're passionate about what you're sharing, if you're sharing something that you did with Python, it doesn't matter if you only wrote 5 lines of code. It can still be an excellent talk. I watched the talk at PyCon US about bees and beehives and the project that a guy made in his house to keep track of his bees. And he before the talk, he was talking to me, and he had more or less the same reservations as you had. And he was like, but it's not a lot of code, and I just used a couple of other libraries, and what if it's too simple? What if people don't like it? People loved his talk because he was sharing a fun project he did, and he showed 10 lines of code, maybe. And like he said, he was only importing some other libraries and putting together other bits and bobs, but that's what everyone does either way. So yeah, it's fine. It doesn't have to be technically super complex for it to be a really good talk. Just make it engaging.
Thank
Okay,
you,
thank you.
Rodrigo.
And then about the accessibility in VS Code, I am not 100% if the UI of VS Code is completely accessible. I would, if I had to guess, I would say yes, as long as you don't have dark mode on. So maybe the default view of Visual Studio Code is accessible. Usually when you're coding, if it's not a black screen, and the font is big enough, is okay. So maybe something you can do is test beforehand. I know, is there a speaker prep room this year at EuroPython?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so you can join the prep room beforehand, and you can grab someone from there and use them as your guinea pig for checking if people can see what you're showing, if it's visible from the very back of the room, because these things you can just test. But usually, as a rule of thumb, no black screen. Yeah, cool. That's it.
Okay, great. Okay. Okay, there's
Okay,
another question.
thank you so
Okay,
much. Sorry, that was
welcome.
it.
Don't
Thank you.
worry. You're welcome. There's no other question. Yeah, yeah. So thank you so much to the program team, the mentors, the mentees, to everyone who showed up for the First Time Speakers Workshop. Thank you to our amazing panelists. Thank you to Iryna, the previous mentee. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to my supporting team, Raquel and Fanis. Thank you to Joanna for helping set this up. Thank you all, and I can't wait to see you all on stage. Okay, Fanis, your hand is up.
Thank you, Nav, for organizing this, first of all.
You're welcome. It was great having you all, and I look forward to seeing all of you at EuroPython or other conferences. Don't forget to say hi when we meet each other. And the recorded video will be shared. It will be uploaded to YouTube. Yeah, I think. Yes. And it will be shared. I'll send you emails about that. Thank you again to our amazing panelists, Abigail, Rodrigo, Laís. Thank you so much. And that's it. Have an amazing evening, everyone. If you have any question, you can email the program team and would gladly respond to you. Enjoy the rest of your week, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.